Hi, it's Geraldine. Here again for lesson 3 of plotting your novel. I hope all is going well. So last time we set up the main conflict of the story, the difference between what the main character wants and what they actually have, and whether or not they're going to do anything about it. And that is going to be what drives the story forward. But today we're going to actually start putting together the elements of the story. We're going to start with the hook. And the hook is the opening sequence of the story that contains just enough conflict to pull the reader in and make them want to read the rest. As you can probably guess, it's quite important, and so it's worth putting some extra thought into. So the first few elements of this story that we're going to talk about are the protagonist's world, and why the protagonist is dissatisfied with their world. We'll go into my answers in a little bit. Obviously the protagonist, as I mentioned before, I have many. It's a little simpler just to go with one. But hey, gotta make things hard for myself, right? The protagonist's world, that is just their normal life, that normal life that they're dissatisfied with, and then why they're dissatisfied with their world. Now, this opening little bit is going to have to set up quite a lot. Give some thought as to where you want to set this opening sequence. What is going to represent your protagonist's world, and what about it is going to represent what they're dissatisfied with? Because it's not enough to just say, here's my world, and I'm dissatisfied with it. It's better off to portray that. So let's give a look at my answers. Alright, so like I mentioned before, I have more than one protagonist, so for the sake of simplicity, we're going to stick to one today. We're going to stick with Amina, who, if you don't remember, she is a vampire hunting priest. Well, for now, she's just a priest. So Amina starts with Amina, who is sitting down to begin her sermon prep for that Saturday. So think a little bit about how to introduce her or them, and what would best sort of illustrate who they are in a few sentences. I have her prepping for a sermon, so she's a priest. Alright, number 2. The protagonist's world. Amina is preparing for a sermon for her small congregation. She's in her creaky older house in Wolseley. Wolseley's a neighborhood in Winnipeg. And she shares it with the pastor, James, and his wife, Laura. She contrasts what she's preparing to preach with the small camp of homeless people who are using the churchyard as home. Now, I haven't given myself a ton of detail here, to be honest, but I have already set up sort of the germ of the conflict. Here she is, has her small congregation, and she's also got this small camp of homeless people, and I think what I'm trying to convey here is that she feels like there's a bit of a disconnect between the two things. Alright, and then number 3, why the protagonist is dissatisfied with their world. James gets a call from a neighbor to the church who says police are at the church and thinks someone has been killed. This is essentially the epitome of Amina's worst fear. She's seized with dread and a sense of helplessness. They go to the church. Amina comforts Crystal, the partner of the person who was killed, and tries not to succumb to a feeling of helplessness and guilt. I don't know about you, but hey, that kind of seems like catchy hook. Hope so. You're probably taking a peek at everything else I have written. Plus some Sam, Sasha. Not sure which one's going to be yet. Probably Sasha. Not sure. To post inciting incident. So, like I said, this is not a binding contract. You can you can change things after the fact. But hopefully that gives you some ideas. Alright, this has been lesson 3. I hope this is making sense. Feel free to message me on Facebook or comment if you have any questions. I'd be happy to try to help. Thanks, have fun, and happy NaNoWriMo.